Alright. We are back. No, that's not what I want. Opening the chat here. Opening YouTube live control panel. Battery life seems adequate for right now. I think somebody is here. Is this an indication that somebody is here? Nisha. Hello, Nisha. Okay, an excellent connection. Nobody's here. All right, I'm gonna give this like 45 seconds or something for some people to come inside. In the meantime, I'll be waiting. All right, fine. In 50 seconds, or I don't know, 40 seconds. It's a little too loud. Okay, we don't need to turn off completely the volume. Alright then, let us begin. Paraskukreti, I probably mispronounced that, I completely wrong. Good evening. And calling Wenninger, good evening as well. I don't know what header image you're talking about, but okay. Alright then, let us begin. This is the Saturn in the 8th house video. Saturn in the 8th house. We've gone through all the houses and now we are in Saturn in the 8th. So, in general, what do we know about the 8th house? The 8th house is a house of secrets, the house of things that we hide. It is a house of shame. One of its significations are humiliation, shame. Things that we keep hidden in general. So let us begin reading. Because Saturn in the 8th minimizes the house of secrets, it makes it smaller. Such a person has no secrets or does not like to keep secrets, meaning that they are not only very honest, authentic, and non-hypocritical, but that they could also be seen as rebellious. Why is that? The average person puts on a facade of normality, keeping everything that is weird or shameful about themselves hidden. But the Saturn in the 8th person, who abhors secrets and deception, would expose to the world everything about themselves that ordinary people would find shameful. And so these natives become perceived as rebellious, nonconformist, strange, odd, and very weird because they did not care to hide themselves. They openly wear their truth on their sleeve, no matter how weird and strange. Okay, we're seeing a few more people in here. Hi, Blessed. How are you? You're excited? I'm very excited too. No, stop. Stop. Don't say that. Don't say that. All right, so let us elaborate a little bit more upon this, right? Saturn, as we know, every house that Saturn enters into, it is going to shrink that house. It's going to make that house smaller. It is going to restrict those significations. Sometimes it can deny those significations so much that it literally brings about the opposite. So if the 8th house is the house of secrets, if Saturn, the house that minimizes, the house that the planet, Saturn, the planet that minimizes and negates, when Saturn enters into that house, what does that do? It means that the person has no secrets. Or one of the interpretations that the person has no secrets. But what does that mean? What are the implications of a person having no secrets? There are many things about us that are a little too weird for us to expose to the world. There are many things about us that, the outside world would shame us, would humiliate us for. You know what I mean? what it means for you to be somebody who has no secrets and who's always open about everything is that people are probably going to think that you're very weird. Like things that the ordinary person would probably keep to themselves, you're out here revealing. You're out here exposing yourself all the time. People are probably going to think that you're weird. You know what I mean? Many people also, in society and in life, there are many people that pretend to conform. They pretend to be normal, right? And that in the darkness, in the shadows where nobody's watching, they do what they do. But the Saturn in the 8th house person, this person does not exist in the shadows. They hate the shadows. And so this sort of thing that the ordinary person would do in the shadows, the Saturn in the 8th house person shows it to the world because they have nothing to hide. And so because of that, there's something that is a little bit rebellious about having Saturn in the 8th house. It can make a person a little bit rebellious because you're unwilling to conform. You're unwilling to hide yourself and conceal yourself. Do you understand that? All right. So let us go into this next paragraph. Here is an example. The average homosexual man is not the one out in the pride parades or otherwise showcasing their sexuality. No, the average homosexual man is the one that conforms to society's expectations, hiding everything that is strange about them and living in the closet. What it means to be openly gay or to be out of the closet in this case obviously representing the 8th house, is to be honest, to be vulnerable. It is to expose oneself. It is to value authenticity above all else. It is to not hide in shadow. So the conforming homosexual man hides what he considers shameful about himself, whereas the openly gay man fully exposes what others consider shameful about himself. Now, I use homosexuality as an example because, yeah, that's a very easy example to use. We live in a world where obviously this type of behavior is seen as, it is seen as how it is seen as in many parts of the world. It is seen as negative. It is seen as shameful, which is why the common thing for a homosexual man to do is to conform. It is to pretend to be something that he is not, right? And then he does what he does in the shadows. He does what he does where nobody's watching. But if a man has Saturn in the 8th house, he's not going to want to be in the closet. He's not going to want to be in the shadows. And so he's going to expose the things about himself that other people would consider shameful. He's going to be out of the closet, out of the darkness, out of the world of secrecy because Saturn is minimizing this house, which is forcing him to be honest and forcing him to be authentic. All right, then. Please don't be shy about any questions, any comments, things like that. Obviously, I like these live streams because I like how interactive they are. Hi, Elena. Okay, let us move on. We can therefore see why the 8th house relates to social rejection and social isolation. Implied signification. This is an implied signification that people don't often talk about. Because the sort of person who refuses to conceal all that is odd and strange about himself, which is the expectation that is placed upon all civilized members of society, must risk being socially isolated and socially ostracized, deemed too weird to be assimilated within society. Saturn in the 8th can create misfits. Saturn in the 8th also aspects the 10th house, which suggests a minimizing of the 10th house. And it also suggests that one starts out in life not respected by others because one shamelessly reveals themselves and all their weirdness. This person is too vulnerable. They overshare. Indeed, Saturn in the 8th can earn someone a reputation of being weird, strange, a misfit, because this person does not care to pretend to conform to society, and so they openly reveal, again, all their strangeness. If Saturn is badly placed, it can even provoke a lot of disgust in people and cause many people to avoid them or otherwise be repulsed by them. These people, if Saturn is badly placed, may be ridiculed often and humiliated often because Saturn does not allow them to hide. If Saturn is badly placed, even if these individuals wish to conceal embarrassing things about themselves, easily people discover what they are hiding and then quickly they are laughed at and ridiculed. At its worst, this position can make it so that an individual never ascends to power and prominence and remains lowly, miserable, and the object of contempt. All right, so naturally, one of the reasons why people conceal things about themselves is because they do not want to lose social power. They do not want to lose social clout, lose social capital. You know what I mean? They don't want to be embarrassed. They don't want to be humiliated. But the thing about Saturn in the 8th house is that either the individual himself chooses to reveal themselves, or the karma of Saturn in this house makes it difficult for this person to hide. But the thing is that some information that we may reveal about ourselves, or that is revealed about us, is a little too delicate, is a little too sensitive. And people may use it against us. And people may laugh at us on a basis of that. They may laugh at us, they may ridicule us, they may put us down. And so one of the very, very negative significations of this house is that, yes, it can cause a lot of early life humiliation. Early life humiliation, but later on in life, it does not happen because Saturn ultimately makes this house very, very strong, but that's down the line. All right, let's check the chat. No, this is not just for D1 charts. It is also for the D9. It is also for the D9. It is also for the D9. Oh, by the way, you guys, let me go over to, in case you guys do not know, this is my YouTube. I am offering astrological readings again, but right now all I'm doing are mini readings. So basically, you can email me if you're interested in a mini reading. Each mini reading is about $30. And I usually take about a week and a half to deliver them. Also, please join me on Patreon. Please join me on Patreon. Right now, I'm charging about like $8 for Patreon. I only have one tier. This is my most recent post, Sun in Ashwini. I'm obviously going to do Ashwini in all the houses. And yes, there are many articles here. Oh, over 180 posts over several years, and a whole bunch of books as well. All right, let's go back. Let us go back. Let us check our next paragraph. So, but the great thing about displacement is the individual never suffers from a fall from grace. Let me even make this bold. Or even sudden events. If you're someone who is always honest and authentic, even if people start out not respecting you, eventually you'll grow into social power, and you will possess a power that can never be destroyed by scandal or shame. Because you don't lie or conceal yourself, so there is no scandalous story to be discovered, and no weakness within you to be exploited, and you are also never blackmailed by anyone, because no one has control over your secrets and can threaten to expose you. The 8th house is the house of sudden events, and that can sometimes even destroy an individual. But with Saturn here, you never suffer from sudden events, and therefore are not easily destroyed by anything. All of this is if Saturn is well placed, and therefore are not easily destroyed by anything. Because people with this position feel the pressure to always be open and honest, they also tend to not behave in dishonorable ways. That way, they are less likely to suffer social shame when they share their life or when their life is exposed. Okay. Back to the chat we go. Conjunction with Rahu, Sun, Mercury. Ooh, you're introducing too many elements right now. Conjunction with Sun, Rahu, Mercury. The Sun is also a planet of exposure, and the Sun is also a malefic. So the Sun also makes it difficult for people to keep secrets in the 8th house, yes. But the Sun, the thing about, later on we're going to talk about how Saturn in the 8th house can reduce a person's sexiness, but Sun in the 8th house can increase a person's sexiness. Too much, actually. Yes. Mercury in the 8th house is going to make a secretive person. Rahu in the 8th house is also going to make a very, very secretive person. Some of the benefits apply, Lola. Some of the benefits apply if it is in a badly placed position or conjunct its enemies. I see similarities with Rahu in the 8th. Am I right? Since Rahu is said to act like Saturn sometimes. There are some similarities, but the thing is that Rahu likes secrets. Rahu really likes secrets, and Rahu would really increase the secretive nature of the individual in the 8th house, whereas Saturn would actually just reduce it. Yeah. Yeah. Saturn in Gemini is well placed because Saturn likes Mercury, even though Mercury is neutral to Saturn. Since Saturn reduces the significations of the houses it sits in the 8th house, it suggests that the individual may not have a lot of sex or a lot of sexual opportunities, and this can be for many reasons. It could be because a lot of casual sexual behavior is inappropriate and even dishonorable, since these people are resistant to such activity because they are wary of being exposed. They refuse to engage in this type of behavior. So see, the 8th house is a house that relates to the actual physical act of sex, but the 8th house a lot of times also relates to sex and sexual activity in a slightly dishonorable way, I suppose you could say. You know, inappropriate sexual relationships with people, or, you know, that you probably shouldn't be with. Whereas the 7th house is more of a formal, socially acceptable sexual relationship. You know, it is your wife, it is your husband, it is your boyfriend, it is your girlfriend. The 8th house is sexual activity that is not of the most appropriate nature. So there is that. Another reason why Saturn in the 8th can reduce sexual opportunities and sexual activity is because Saturn is the lord of anxiety, and so can make a person weary of engaging in casual sex, fearing such things as disease. Saturn here would at its extremes even give one a disgust for such subjects as sex or casual sex. Another reason why Saturn in the 8th house can reduce a person's interest in sex or reduce sexual opportunities is Saturn is a planet that closes the entrance to any house, and here it is very selective of its sexual partners, which obviously reduces the number. Another reason is Saturn could quite literally make a person ignorant or unaware of the many opportunities that could be around them for casual sex. Alright, so let's talk just a little bit more about this. Saturn aspects the 5th house from its 10th aspect. Remember, Saturn has, how many aspects does Saturn has? Saturn has its 3rd aspect, and so it aspects 3rd houses from itself. Saturn has its 7th aspect, and so it aspects 7 houses from itself. And it has its 10th aspect, aspecting 10 houses from itself. What is the 10th house from the 8th house? It is the 5th house, the house of fun, play, romance. Another reason why having Saturn in the 8th can literally reduce a person's sexual opportunities is because quite literally the person does not notice that they're being flirted with. Like, when we go out to the supermarket, when we go out to the gym, when we go out to like parties, there are people who indirectly communicate interest to us. But some people are so ignorant and so unaware of when they're being communicated interest that they quite literally miss opportunities for fun, for play, etc. And so Saturn in the 5th, Saturn in the 7th, and Saturn in the 8th, and even Saturn in the 1st, these are some of the positions that can quite literally make a person ignorant as to whether or not somebody is flirting with them. And so they end up missing many opportunities. All right. And yet another reason why Saturn in the 8th can reduce a person's sexual opportunities is because it can literally reduce a person's sexual appetite. So naturally, this list that I'm providing here is not exhaustive at all. It's just a few things that I've written down. What if you have Saturn and Rahu paired in the 8th? What it could suggest if you have Saturn and Rahu in the 8th is that you have a lot of fear regarding the significations of the 8th house. Obviously, we'd have to look at the sign and stuff like that to see if they're badly placed, etc. But it could suggest that you have a lot of fear about those things. You're very paranoid about those things. It could suggest that you're very fascinated by espionage. Yeah. Makes sense with all those rumors about Jay-Z. JC has Saturn in the 8th, does he? Okay. 8th Lord in 2nd house. Yeah, I'd have to think about that. Who wants soul ties with randoms? My friends, apparently a lot of people. Apparently a lot of people. The 8th house is not truly a house of death, but instead transformation. Though it has a lot to do with vitality and its relationship to sexual energy. So, someone with Saturn here could also be energetically conservative and practice such things as semen retention, or not masturbating, or being celibate. And for this reason, this position can make a person healthier and look younger for many years. Such a person may therefore enjoy practicing sexual control over themselves. If Saturn is well placed, this is a very sexually pure person. All right, so this next paragraph is gonna get just a little bit inappropriate, so please forgive me. So more on the subject of sex. The following will be a more vulgar interpretation, so excuse the language. Having Saturn here could be a very good position for a woman because it suggests a very tight sexual organ, because naturally Saturn is always making things smaller, tighter, etc. In general, having Saturn in the 8th suggests people who live life honestly, are genuine, and are not hypocritical, because these people do not like to hide things. They do not like to conceal themselves and want to always be open. And this is often related to people who value being good, or at least civilized members of society in the true sense, not the hypocritical sense. If you're the sort of person who is always exposing things about yourself and everything about you is always in the open, then you often feel the pressure to always be proper and never be corrupt in your dealings. Such a one may be trustworthy. And also, that's one of the reasons why somebody has Saturn in the 8th house, it's very difficult to destroy them. It's very difficult to destroy them because what is the most common way that people are destroyed? Gossip, scandal, embarrassment, humiliation. If you're somebody who's always honest, and if you're somebody, because you have an honest nature, you take care to never do anything unseemly and dishonorable, how can anybody destroy you within the civilized world? You see what I mean? So yes, Saturn also aspects the 10th house. Yes, and so it protects the 10th house. Though you start off weak in matters of the 10th house, as you grow, your 10th house will become very, very stable. And your reputation, your good reputation, your good name is never destroyed. And so having Saturn here in many ways, if it's well placed, can be a very, very, very awesome position. Okay. Saturn in Ardra. Saturn in Ardra can also be a very good position because usually scary planets and scary nakshatras are a good thing. Ardra is a very scary nakshatra. Ardra suggests that somebody could suffer from, having Ardra placements in general suggests that somebody could suffer from sudden realizations that make you cry, sudden traumatic realizations. You know what I mean? Like one day you find out that you're adopted, or one day you find out that, you're being cheated on. Those sort of sudden realizations that make you cry and that bring a lot of sadness to you. But if you have Saturn in Ardra, what it suggests is that you usually do not suffer from sudden realizations. In fact, it could even suggest that you often predict in advance horrible things that could happen in your life, and you tend to avoid those things quite easily. That's just one of the that's just one interpretation. That is just one interpretation. Okay, we are almost done with our documents right here. I am on the 3rd page. I see that there are 23 people here, but I do not see a lot of comments. I like to see comments. I like to see the chat busy. That is the reason why I do these live streams. I like to see the chat busy. I really do welcome questions, but please, let's try to stay on topic. Lol, funny. An Ardra son who is adopted. That was just a random example, though. Alright, let me read the next paragraph. Where are we now? Okay, so actually, Saturn in the 8th house will purposely expose someone if they behave badly. Whereas planets like Jupiter and Venus in the 8th house will allow you to get away with evil deeds, as they will cloak you, since Jupiter and Venus are benefic, and so they will increase the significations of the 8th house. Jupiter and Venus will help you to accumulate more and more secrets and help you to partake in activities in the dark, and they won't expose you. Saturn is always making the 8th house smaller, so even when the native tries to hide things, things don't stay hidden for very long. These are the people that can never tell lies, or they will be discovered easily, or they can never trick or swindle or steal or cheat, or else again they will be discovered easily because that is just their karma. Because Saturn here negates sudden events and unexpected occurrences, these individuals may live a very stable, very controlled, and very practical lives. This is just someone who does not suffer much from anxiety, since 6th and 8th house are, I suppose, the two major houses of anxiety, and so Saturn here can also reduce that greatly, making a person brave in some ways. This suggests someone who does not suffer much from anxiety. This position also suggests someone who never has a hair out of place, always comes off as very proper, put together, clean, never a scandal about them, never any drama, and someone who seemingly lives a normal life. This is overall a very pleasant placement. It is also easy for such a one to be strategic and actually have their plans come to fruition because they naturally do not suffer from too many surprises or hidden factors. They can plan for things 5 years in advance, and their plans are not easily derailed by odd events and odd factors that they didn't take into account. All right, so obviously in life, whenever we're trying to plan things, right? You could be the most studious person. You could try to be the most strategic person in the world. But here's the thing. Anytime you have a 1-year plan, a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan, there are always factors that you did not account for. And even among the factors that you think you've accounted for, guess what? You probably did not give them their proper weights. And so as you're trying to plan for the future, out of the blue, there are random things that happen. They make your plans harder to achieve. Sometimes they make your plans harder to achieve, and sometimes they make them impossible to achieve. But you know what it means to have Saturn in the 8th? It suggests that sudden events do not happen to you too frequently. Which means that actually you can safely plan for the future, and the things that you plan actually do happen and they do come to fruition because you're not too easily derailed. You know, you're the kind of person that when you decide that you want to go to medical school and you want to graduate, I don't know how many years is medical school. I don't even know why I use that example. Anyway, let's say it's 6 years, right? You're the type of person that if you say you want to go to medical school and graduate in 6 years, that happens. But somebody else, if they said that, then their uncle died, and their uncle was the one paying their school fees, and then they get pregnant, and so now it takes longer for them. Then what? They're bullied at school, or this teacher is, manipulating their grades. Crazy things like that. But if you have Saturn in the 8th, those type of crazy things, they don't happen to you too frequently. Yes, absolutely. Having Saturn in the 8th, that is another very good interpretation of it. People with Saturn in the 8th, they do not like change at all. They do not like change, and they will try to avoid it as much as possible. That is one legitimate interpretation of it. So yes. Well, if you have Venus and Sun in the 8th house, I can understand why it is that you would have people making up rumors against you, trying to destroy your reputation, essentially. Yeah. One can easily see that, especially because Sun is enemy to both Saturn and Venus, and you have that in the 8th. I can see that. No, Lola, it's in terms of everything as well. Yes. Um, it's a combination called niche bung Raj Yoga, right? In my video, I talked about that. If one planet is exalted and another planet is debilitated, and they are aspecting each other mutually, the exalted planet can save the debilitated planet from debility. So if Jupiter and Mars are in Cancer, Jupiter is exalted, Mars is debilitated, Jupiter can save Mars from debility. But there are a few caveats to that, which one day we will explore. One day we will explore. Saturn in Mrigashira. Mrigashira has a lot to do with flirtation, temptation. And so if somebody has Saturn in the 8th house in Mrigashira, it could really give emphasis to that thing that I was saying about the person literally not noticing what other people are flirting with them. So having Saturn in Mrigashira could suggest somebody who may go a little too long in life without too many romantic opportunities because they quite literally do not notice what other people are flirting with them and things like that. But since Saturn is happy in Gemini and Taurus, it can protect you. Saturn here can protect you from a lot of inappropriate sexual activity because, unfortunately, yes, Mrigashira, one of its significations are some inappropriate sexual activity. I still have to study retrogradation more. I still do not feel like I understand retrograde planets very well, and so I can't answer that question right now. What happens if the 8th Lord is in the 2nd house? What happens if the 8th Lord is in the 2nd house? Right now, my mind is not really into that right now because, yeah, I'm much more focused strictly on the 8th house and Saturn there. And so I can't, my mind... Combust Saturn suggests that Saturn and Sun and Saturn are conjunct in the 8th house. We're talking about the 8th house, right? So that's not going to be a very comfortable position. What it could suggest is that you're somebody who really enjoys being in the underworld. You enjoy like sleazy bars. You could probably even enjoy strip clubs. Like you like really underground businesses. You know what I mean? But it could also suggest that you may suffer from some humiliations, from some sudden humiliations in life. Again, if we're talking about Saturn, Sun in the 8th house. Yeah, Saturn in the 8th also restricts interest in the occult. It does also, because you're not interested in anything that happens in the darkness. And occult, the word occult means, to hide, essentially. It's one of its... I'm not sure if I understand this question that you're asking. Does it apply to planets in home signs too? Like Cancer, Moon, Leo sign, Venus, and Libra. Oh, the things that I'm saying about Saturn and the 8th. No, these planets are different, and so they bring up different things. Someone who has Moon in Cancer, they may enjoy the secrets of the 8th house. They may have many, many secrets. Venus and Libra, you may enjoy a lot of hidden affairs, things like that. I can see your chats, Elena. So having Saturn conjunct Venus in the 8th house, what it may suggest is that this person, it gives emphasis to that thing that we were saying about the individual not noticing a lot of sexual opportunities, and also being very, very cautious about who they engage with sexually. It may suggest somebody who tries to practice some degree of sexual purity. Yes, according to some Puranas, Saturn was born in Revati. What do you mean by a blank chart? I mean, if you have Jupiter in the 8th house, I would imagine that you receive some benefits. I was referring to the Jodas comments. Does the planet in its own sign count as overruling? Oh, yes. Also, if it's in its own sign, it can also do that. Yes. Let me try to think of an example. Let us say that Moon is in Cancer, but Mars is also in Cancer. It's Moon's sign, but Mars is debilitated. Mars is saved by Moon. Yes. Oh yeah, the eighth house is a very good house for people who are predatory, because the eighth house, one of the significations of the eighth house is the house of enslavements, where you enslave people, where you control people through secrets, where you blackmail people, where you control people through their sexuality. So somebody who has Mars in the eighth house, somebody who has Venus or Mercury in the eighth house, they can engage in that sort of behavior, controlling, manipulating people, enslaving people through occult and dark means, through witchcraft, through blackmailing, etc. And yes, through predation as well. All right, then, let us continue with our document here. In fact, I'm about to talk about just that right now. Saturn is a planet of slavery and oppression, and where it sits tells you about who is oppressing you and the means they use to do so. But it is also the planet of our slaves and servants. And so where it sits tells us who it is we ourselves oppress and who we ourselves have command over. So someone with Saturn in the 8th, if it is badly placed, and if other conditions apply, suggests someone who, though to the outside world may seem as though they are acting freely, behind the scenes they are being controlled, blackmailed, or otherwise oppressed. And also, if Saturn is badly placed in the 8th house, this person's sexuality may be dominated and controlled by other people, and it can suggest someone who is sexually enslaved in some horrible way. And so, it would be a common thing for politicians, for example, to have a badly placed Saturn in the 8th house. Because a lot of politicians are manipulated, a lot of politicians are controlled, they pretend as though they're acting of their own free will, their own philosophies, their own moral integrity, when really they're bought and paid for. And also, it would be common for a lot of people who are taken into prostitution, but without, not of their own volition. Having a badly placed Saturn in the 8th house could also suggest somebody who is taken into prostitution, but not because they want to, but because they're being forced to, pressured to, things like that. Yeah. Whereas somebody who has Venus and Mercury in the 8th house, they could engage in sex work because they want to themselves. So there's that. And if Saturn is better placed, it can suggest that one has oneself powers in the underworld, the secret underbelly of society. One may possess hidden minions that do one's bidding, or otherwise possess secret powers that one exercises to control others. One could oneself be a blackmailer, one could oneself be the sort to conspire against others. At its best, Saturn here suggests that the individual can never be controlled by anything or anybody, because even their own sexuality they have mastered, and they either do not suffer from horniness or even if they do get sexually aroused, they understand how to control and channel it. Actually, now this made me curious. I want to check Jeffrey Epstein's birth chart to see if we can see anything. Jeffrey Epstein. Okay, it says that it's AA verified. Okay. Let's check this out. Okay. We do not see... Oh, actually, we do see Saturn in the 8th house. You want to know how we see Saturn in the 8th house? I'll show you. So astrologers consider the ascendant chart, right? Looking at the ascendant and studying the chart from the ascendant. But you know another equally important chart? Another equally important chart is the moon charts. Making the moon sign the ascendant. When we make the moon sign the ascendant, we find that Jupiter is in the 2nd house, Venus and Mars are in the 12th house, Sun is in the 11th house. But what is in the 8th house? In the 8th house is Saturn. So how very interesting that Jeffrey Epstein has Saturn in the 8th house. which, among other things, suggests that he has control over the people and things that the 8th house signifies. Those people and those things are his slaves. He has control over them. Very, very interesting. He controls them in various ways, and we know some of the ways that he has controlled these people. Okay, so that's interesting. That's interesting. That's interesting. That is very interesting. Oh, and look, also, he has Ketu, because this is Rahu right here. He has Ketu in the 8th house as well, which again suggests an understanding of the 8th house. His power is established in the 8th house. He knows how to control, manipulate, and enslave people, So, yeah. Yeah, see, this is what I was talking about, some of the caveats. So, in my original video, I didn't talk about this because I did not know it at the time, or I did not believe it at the time. But the more that I studied this, the more that I realized something. Enemies cannot save each other. Moon and Mars are friends, and so if Mars is debilitated in Cancer and Moon is also in Cancer, Moon saves Mars. But the thing is that Mars and Saturn are enemies, and so Saturn is in Aries with Mars. Mars does not save Saturn. Mars does not save Saturn. So there's that. This is a very good point, Tin Royal Hat. Tin Royal Hat is saying that Saturn in the 8th denies the individual a lot of occult teachings until the first Saturn return. And that is true. After the first Saturn return, they have more opportunities to develop themselves in that area. That area is open to them now. You feel totally opposite to this as ATK. Don't know what this means. Sun ruling 8th house. So I'm just here to observe y'all. Okay. No, because Saturn is not debilitated in Cancer. It's simply badly placed. The reverse Nish Bang Raj Yoga only works for debilitation and exaltation. And also if a planet is in its own sign. So yeah. All right. I'm also curious about P. Diddy's birth chart. I know that he does not have a time of birth, unfortunately, but I suppose we could see his moon sign. I suppose we could see his moon. Let's check this out. P. Diddy. Oh, why is this thing so... Alright, so P. Diddy does not have Saturn 8 houses from his moon. He instead has Saturn 9 houses from his moon. Alright, okay. I see. Ooh. Alright, let us finish this document because I'm seeing that I'm losing battery life. Okay, so in general, Saturn in the 8th house protects an individual from all dark forces, including witchcraft, as one is not susceptible to it. The 8th house also rules sexual attractiveness, and the 5th house again rules charisma, and sexiness is a type of charisma. Saturn sitting here and aspecting the 5th house from its 10th aspect suggests one who does not radiate a lot of sexual appeal or sexiness, and may struggle to be seen as sexually desirable. Actually, Saturn here could also make one a nun or social renunciate, as it suggests one who does not procreate and who does not seek social status or social power. All right, so we are at the end of our documents. We are at the end. Let me just read the chat here. Ooh. Yes, Saturn in the 8th house absolutely gives people longevity. It gives people longevity because it protects them from sudden events, crazy events. It gives people longevity because it makes them sexually pure, so they don't engage in crazy behavior. And they protect their own sexual energy, and they know how to recycle and upcycle it, etc. So yeah, absolutely. Saturn in the 8th in Shadabisha. Shadabisha has some elements of the 8th house in that it relates to espionage, it relates to secrets. Shadabisha is one of the blackmailing nakshatras as well, because Shadabishas are very big blackmailers. Having Saturn in Shadabisha and in the 8th house suggests somebody who, again, does not enjoy engaging in secrets and things like that, but that depends on the rest of the chart, because it could either mean that this person oppresses others using those things, or it could suggest somebody who just altogether does not enjoy those things at all. Yeah, it could suggest somebody who's very good at manipulating, very good at blackmailing, very good at crushing people and getting them to be their slaves on a basis of their secrets and things like that. Or somebody who, yes, once again, prefers to just be open and honest and avoid such things and those significations. No, to win a lottery is a sudden event, and so Saturn here would not help with that. Big inheritances, Saturn here would not help with that as well. Jupiter in the 8th could make a lottery winner. Jupiter in the 8th can make somebody who inherits a lot of money. Jupiter in the 8th can make somebody who has a lot of sexual opportunities. Jupiter in the 8th can make somebody who has a lot of secrets but pretends to be a normal person from the outside. So yeah. All right, you guys. It has been fun. I'm glad we did this Saturn in the 8th house video. Not sure exactly when the Saturn in the 9th video is going to come out. So yes. Thank you guys very, very much for joining. Please subscribe to my YouTube. Check me out on Twitter. Check me out on Patreon as well. Check me out on Patreon. There are lots of posts there. I'm not sure if I'll upload this document to Patreon, but I probably will, probably not. And also, if you're interested in astrological readings, please hit me up as well. All right. So, see you.